I'm Wayne Carey, and this is The Truth Hurts.
Well, here we are again for another episode of The Truth Hurts. I'm Ayrton Woolley alongside the King Wayne Carey. Duck, what have you been up to this weekend, mate?
Oh, it's been a very interesting weekend for me, actually. I got home to my hometown, Wagga. So not home here in Melbourne, but drove up the highway on the Hume. And whenever I get back to Wagga, there's happy memories, some sad memories. Drove past a couple of the old houses we lived in, a couple of the houses that aren't there anymore, and visited my old footy club, North Wagga, which was interesting. Not much has changed with the actual oval, but the facilities are a little bit different to what they were when I was playing it there in the under 8s and under 10s, and they were good memories. So I watched. They got a really young team at the moment, but went in and sat.
They still get around you up there, coach. Do they? Or
ran into a couple of guys that I've known forever and played under my brother. My brother coached. I think he coached North Wagga seniors to about 5 grand finals and three winning ones, and a couple of those old players were there watching. The seniors run around, and what has changed with country footy, I will say, is that going back to the early 90s when we weren't playing in finals here in Melbourne, I would go home and I'd run the water or definitely go to all the games that my brother's team was playing in. They were men. They were, everyone was a man. I mean, my brother was a big guy, and all the other players, big guys, rubber stamps on them and really intimidating. Now it's like a team of 18-year-olds. I mean, they're really young. North Wagga are young at the moment, but most teams, they just look younger. They don't look as manly as what they did back in the day, and that's where country footy has changed. But it was good to get back there. Ran into a few, like I said, few people. Went to East Wagga Footy Club, which is another footy club that I used to play against. So it was a lot of fun. And
there was a moment, Duck. Now, I've seen some funny things in my time, but I've never seen a bloke sign what I saw you signing on the weekend. Can you just explain what happened? I think we'll be able to post this vision. What was going on?
I think I might have used an expletive, didn't I? You're allowed to post that?
Yeah, I think so. I think we can get away with just the one. But what were you signing up there?
Oh, it was a chainsaw. So I watched another local game. So I ended up at 3 different games on the one Saturday. So I got around and wanted to, like I said, definitely wanted to go to my home. But, one of the big boys came up and he had a chainsaw in his hand and said, "Can you sign this?" And I said, "Well, it's not going to add any value to it." But, one of the more interesting things that I've signed. But like I said, I just love country people. It really is. It was really good to get back there. Like I said, everyone's friendly. They all like a beer or two, which goes down well. And Tommy Maguire, who looked after us down there, stayed at his house out on his farm. He's got thousands of sheep out there, and you've got kangaroos jumping around. It was just it was a lot of fun, but probably too many cold ones as well, but
a little bit raspy.
All in all, it was awesome.
I did notice on the weekend Bernie Vince kicked 8 goals, 9 or something like that from 36 touches playing for Maryborough. Have you ever gone back and played a game for Wagga or anything post-footy career? Or
I played a game up in Queensland, did my calf in about 3 minutes, and then played a game here in Melbourne and did the exact same thing. But good effort by Bernie, because not a lot of those boys go back and find it easy. But he's still pretty fit, but that's a good effort by him. Talking about that as well, my little fella, little Carter Carey, was only 3.
You wrote him off a couple of weeks ago.
3 weeks ago, I wanted to declare that father and son was off. So I've taken him to Auskick, and he just wasn't interested. Just didn't want to do it, and he was sucking his thumb, and he's young, but I just thought, no father-son going on here. And he turned the corner on the weekend, albeit I missed it because I wasn't there, but I got a video footage sent to me, and he's back. The father,
he's back.
The father's son is back on. He was showed a lot of agility, did all of the exercise, and he won an award. And I have never seen a bigger smile on a little kid's face. And the 2 weeks prior to that, when we got in the car, they gave out the awards, and he was a little bit upset because he didn't get one. And I just said to him straight, I said, well, if you don't contribute or you don't, you just stand around sucking your thumb, hanging onto your mum's leg, you're not going to get an award. So, it was fairly blunt for a 4-year-old, but he's taken it on board, and I couldn't be happier. It was, just great to see.
That's awesome. It's a fine line, isn't it, between constructive, feedback even for a 4-year-old and learning life lessons and that sort of thing.
Well, I'm not one of these. I'm not a dad that believes in letting them win. So even now, if I'm playing, we play Connect 4 or Uno, or some people say Uno, whatever it may be. I don't let them win. I've played Ella at tennis a little while ago. She's a good tennis player, but there's no way you let them win, because there will come a day, whether it's a running race, whether it's whatever game you're playing against your kids, there'll come a day where they are beating me, and it's not far away. So I'm taking all the wins I can.
I used to have that with my old man with wrestling. I don't know if you would be wrestling Carter anytime soon, but I got my dad eventually. And partially tore his ACL, and we were wrestling with the carpet. So.
Well, it'd be fair to say, given that Carter's 4, I'm still winning those.
I think I got my dad when he was about 55.
Yeah.
On the weekend, some interesting footy games, but the thing that's probably been stealing the sporting limelight at the moment has been the Ashes. Australia obviously first test against England. All this talk about BAZBALL, which is Brendan McCullum, the New Zealand coach, has gone over there and. He's got Ben Stokes on board, and England are just playing this ultra-attacking cricket all of the time. And it's the first real test for BAZBALL against Australia. It got me thinking in a more local sense about whether we have a footy equivalent of BAZBALL. Is there a team that maybe plays that sort of freewheeling style, do you think at all?
Probably Collingwood at the moment, most like that. But thinking about it, going back to the 90s, Geelong, they were a BAZBALL. They scored heavily, quickly. Now I know you had the great Gary Ablett Senior, but they had Lidner, they had Billy Brownless, they had a lot of key forwards, and they'd get it in there quickly, and they were kicking over 200 points. I think there was a period where they kicked over 190 for about 3 or 4 weeks in a row in the 90s. They were just an huge attacking team. Obviously Malcolm Blight, Flair, his theory was, kick more points, obviously, than the opposition and take the game on. Did it invariably win them a premiership? Because they played West Coast, who were ultra defensive, and then in grand finals, it obviously just fell short against Hawthorn, as we know, but failed miserably against West Coast, who were the opposite of that. They were a great comparison,
because I think a lot of people are waiting for BAZBALL to fail in a way as well. England have scored 500 plus in a day at different times. Against Australia, they made nearly 400 on the first day, then declared when Joe Root was unbeaten on 100. So people are waiting for this to come undone. It hasn't so far, but Australia's certainly putting...
I like it. I mean, there are a lot of people that have gone off Test cricket. I still love Test cricket, and especially the Ashes. So, take the game on. It's, they're playing it like it's a one-day game, aren't they?
Absolutely.
It's good to see.
Did you see the stare down of Usman Khawaja from, I think it was Ollie Robinson, the England fast bowler? Yeah. He got it was 100. Usman was on 140, and Robinson hadn't done a whole lot. He sends down deliveries are only about 120 clicks an hour, so he's not all that fast. And he told him to F off, you prick, or something like that. I thought it was a bit interesting. Yeah,
a bit of a dick snap. You don't do that, especially when a guy's just scored a century. It's a bit like if you're 10 goals down and you kick a goal and then you run around and celebrate like you've just won the grand final. It's sort of like that. The damage is done. A bloke's just made 100 and, you've sent him off. So, he didn't win anyone over. Given his figures as well, I wouldn't have been sending anyone off.
Absolutely. Speaking of celebrating like you've won a grand final, maybe not like they'd won a grand final, but there was some big celebrations at the MCG yesterday, albeit in front of a fairly small crowd. Has Carlton turned a corner, or are we just tempering our expectations on the Blues?
Never been a bigger certainty than the Blues on the weekend. You just knew that they were going to take the game. And, wasn't it exciting? Talk about BAZBALL. They actually took the game on. You got big forwards. Guess what? Get it in there quickly. They had more fluency. They looked more confident, albeit, against an opposition that constantly gives us glimpses. The wins they had in Darwin earlier not all that long ago, were great wins by the Suns. And now all of a sudden they come back to the MCG. They just, when you think I know they're only a game out of the 8, like most teams are because of the closeness of the competition, but they can let you down. And I know everyone's had their ups and downs this year, but they were disappointing, but well done to the Blues. And, I think I said 5 weeks ago the Blues will not play finals footy, but just like everyone else, they're only a game and a half outside the 8. I still don't think they'll make it, but it was a good sign, and I think they needed to do that.
Important win, absolutely. The other one that's interesting that's just out of the 8 at the moment, Richmond now just 2 points out of the 8 after their win over St Kilda on Saturday night. I'm interested in where you see Richmond overall, because I feel like you probably wouldn't want to play them at the MCG in a big game later in the year.
I agree with that. They're a little bit of a sleeping giant. If they get it right at the right time, because they've got match winners. They've got guys that can grab a game by the scruff of the neck. Isn't it good to see a guy, Trent Cotchin, 300 games, playing in the midfield, spending a bit of time in the middle and getting plenty of it. He looks like he's turned back the clock. Koch, it was great to see, but I agree with that. I think they could do a little bit of damage if they were bottom part of the 8. They might be one that can, string 2 or 3 finals in a row. You just don't know about the Tigers.
I'm a bit more of a stats nerd than you. It's fair to say you're not one really for stats, but I found the Trent Cotchin one really interesting since Andrew McQualter's taken over. Jacob Hopper's been out. He could be back next week. So I think it throws up an interesting question about the makeup of Richmond's midfield. So Koch in the last 3 weeks under McQualter has attended nearly 70% of Richmond's centre bounces, which is an indication he's playing, almost pure midfield. In the 5 weeks prior, he'd attended none. Dustin Martin's centre bounces were up. He got 35 touches on the weekend. I just wonder, in turn, Dion Presti's been pushed out a little bit. I just wonder what happens when Hopper's back, because Cotchin to me he's a mid. Half forward, maybe had one game where he kicked a few goals. I don't know if that's really his go.
It's one of those things, isn't it? So you've got your older players, you put them in there because they've done it before, or you're giving the younger guys more exposure to those centre clearances. You're right. So he's doing the complete opposite to probably what Dimmer would be doing right now if he was still coach. So, guys like Bolton and those guys we know can go through there. They've got, and that's why they're a little bit dangerous. They've got a lot of options that can go through the middle of the ground and play multiple positions. I think that's one of the strengths that Richmond have. But you put, your 2 superstars in where the footy is and you get results.
Another game on the weekend, or yesterday rather, North Melbourne up against the Western Bulldogs. North again put up a bit of a fight. The Dogs too good. Aaron Norton had to go back. Tim O'Brien and Liam Jones were injured. Some people have been calling for him to go back even when those guys were fit. I wonder what you see for Aaron Norton and his best position for the Bulldogs situation, given they've got Lobb and Ugle Hagen and these guys up forward.
Yeah, I prefer him up forward. I know he can play down back, but if you can play forward, you play him there. And I know he's had some quiet games because I think that's the way the Bulldogs have played. They've just bombed it to him at times. But no, he's a forward for mine. And I know, clearly he can play back as well, and he might fill some holes. But when they get some defenders back, I'd be sending him in forward. And I tell you, if I was coaching against the Bulldogs, I'd be pretty happy if I saw Aaron Norton go down back.
Now, when I was watching some of the footy yesterday, sometimes you can be, you're scrolling through different things on Twitter or Facebook, and you can get a little careless about what you're doing. I saw this guy. I won't name him. I don't know him. He just had something a bit derogatory to say about one of my mates on a post, and so I thought, I'll look up this guy's profile and just.
If I was to respond to that, I wouldn't have any time.
Yeah, true. Well, I looked at his profile. I want to see what this bloke looks like. Anyway, I'd been looking down at a couple of little things, thinking, yeah, okay, righto. And I hadn't realised for about 30 seconds that I'd accidentally sent him a friend request on Facebook, which not the end of the world, but he would then know that I had been looking at his profile a little bit. It did get me thinking about other times where there's been a scenario where you've maybe done something like that. I love now with text messages that you can undo the message. And a good mate of mine, Julian De Stoop, actually, he wouldn't mind me saying this. He's done this before where he sent a message to, it was meant for me, but he sent it to Tony Jones, my old boss. It was about Tony. Tony had been talking about the pre-season games, and it was to do with the result. And Tony built the result up as maybe being a little bit more than, it's a pre-season game. And Jules said, "What's Tony on about? It's a bloody pre-season game." Sent it to Tony, and he did not take it well. He didn't talk.
I wouldn't have thought so.
He didn't talk to Jules for a fair while. I gave him absolute cold shoulder, and the worst thing was I was guilty by association because it was meant for me.
Yeah.
Then I was in the bad books with TJ as well. So I wondered if you had any scenarios where you've done that. Have you sent any messages that you regret or that you?
It'd be fair to say I've sent a few that have gone to the wrong person. I have done that. I've also sent messages to mates, and then you've had people sitting next to them, and it was about them, not in a really bad way or anything like that, but the fact that it bobs up on the phone.
Yeah,
and that's why you shouldn't have your phone where the message box so you can actually read it.
Exactly.
That's not good at all. So yeah, I've had a fair few of those. I've had a few sent to me from a few high profile people that I won't mention, but talking about their relationship and their relationship with their mother-in-law and all of this, and I sent the message back and I said, I'm not sure that message was meant for me, and they went, "Oh, sorry, Wayne." It was a massive
None
message.
About you to you.
Not about me. No,
that's right.
It was about his mother-in-law and his partner. So yeah, that was an interesting one.
You wouldn't want that getting in the wrong hands.
Hang on, did you say you can delete a text message now? How long have you got?
I think until they've
read it.
Yeah. So I've done it a few times. If you get a spelling mistake, or you think, "Oh, geez, maybe I went a bit hard there." Or
have you got on your phone that you can see whether you've read the message or not?
No, I don't. Why do you?
I think I don't have mine on that, so people can't see when I've read it.
Yeah, I don't want them to know if I've read it or not.
I will say with that, isn't it annoying when you know they've read it but you haven't got a response?
Nothing worse.
And you're sitting there going, "I know you've read it."
Yeah.
So where's what are you doing?
It's like when you see the dots pop up and you think they're about to write back, then they don't write back.
They don't. Yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah, I like people getting back to me instantly. I'm a bit a bit like that. Now, there was another moment on the weekend which made me laugh yesterday. It was on the Sunday Footy Show. They were talking about Origin. It almost linked back to your time back in Wagga because you grew up there with your brother, obviously. But they were talking about Origin. They had Jonathan Thurston and Cameron Munster were being interviewed. At the end of the interview, Munster said, "Hey, Joey," as in Andrew Johns, have you been speaking to your brother yet? This is like throwing the cat amongst the pigeons because there's been this big feud between the Johns boys in recent weeks. And I don't know if you saw it, but Joey's face was... I have seen it. I was trying to work out, because you're involved in show business, you're involved in radio and all this sort of stuff. He had a little smirk, but how much of this is real versus theatre, do you think? Because they've had blues before. They've said they've had blues and they don't talk for a while.
Yeah, well, brotherly love. The thing about brothers, you can have these type of blues and then, you get over it and you move on. But there definitely was something there. But I love John Thirst. They give a little fist pump, and he's laughing all the time anyway. He's one of those guys, just always happy. Jonathan Thurston, I love him. But yes, Joey Johns. I know Joey. He's a ripper. But and obviously Matty's more the comedian out of the two. He's the funnier one. But as Joey says, he was the better player by a fair way. So.
How do you know Joey? What's your link with him? You just met him over time?
Just met him over time with different things. Good fun. It's good. Good fun to be around. Very entertaining. So watch this. But we've all had blues. I mean, I've never actually had never come to blows or anything with my brother. But growing up, you did when you were younger. Me and my younger brother, were fighting all the time. But be fair to say, my older brother, you wouldn't want to, get in a scuffle with him. So I sort of steered clear. But we had words over the years over different things, and a couple of times came close. The younger brother's a bit mad as well, so I was probably one to stay away. I think Dick and Sam might have had a little bit of a blue, like many years ago. But as you do as brothers, you get over it and you move on. But I've steered clear. Like I said, they're both a little bit mad for me. So.
When it's family, it's much. Sometimes the heat just rises in your head, and the red mist descends, and it just happens, doesn't it, a little bit with it when it's family. But
it does. But like I said, the main thing about family is you can have those type of disagreements, but you get over it quickly and you move on.
There was something that I wanted to ask you about, and I'm going a fair bit deeper than some of the topic matter that we've discussed so far today. Before we came in this morning, and it's completely off Broadway, but Bradley Beal, so he plays for the Washington Wizards. He's just been traded to the Phoenix Suns. We've got Kevin Durant and these guys, they're going to become a super team. He had a no-trade clause, so that's very rare in the NBA. He had that inserted in his contract. It basically meant...
How many of the players... in the NBA, I know you don't know the exact number, but what sort of percentage would be able to get that clause written in?
I'd say it'd only be like not even a few percent. It'd only be like a few players.
So the absolute. So a guy like LeBron, would he have that?
I think he had it for a time, but now I don't think so.
And Durant would have had it.
It's a great question. Only very few have had it over time. No, I don't think Kevin Durant has. I don't think Steph Curry doesn't, for instance. So there's even guys at that level don't necessarily have them. Washington gave it to Bradley Beal because they were worried about losing him at the time when they re-signed him. What it meant was that he could basically choose which team he got traded to if they wanted to trade him, because otherwise he'd just say, well, no, I don't want to go there. And now Washington have decided, well, we want to rebuild. We want to get rid of his $50 million a year salary. It meant he's more like an AFL case currently. The AFL players have the ultimate say over where they go. Clubs can say, we want to get rid of you, but they will nominate
a bit like Brodie Grundy. Didn't really want to go to Melbourne. He wanted to stay at Collingwood, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. It got me thinking, I think AFL players should be able to be traded against their will. So the majority of the NBA, they can.
No.
And I've got a few reasons for this. I think there's a few reasons. Now, the argument against it, I understand, might be that the NBA players are earning.
Exactly right. So you can't be traded. Like, for instance, if you live in Melbourne, you've got a young family, and then all of a sudden you get traded to, say, Adelaide or Perth or somewhere like that, and the money, so you've got to relocate, and they just don't earn a big enough wage for that to happen for mine.
Yep. So that's why I think you could put a few stipulations in there. Now, the players would have to agree to this, so maybe you give them a salary bump in the next CBA deal. I wonder if it could be players who are earning, say, more than $500,000 a year or more than the average wage, which is, $400,000 or something like that. I think the advantages are a few for a few reasons. So in the case of Bradley Beal and the Washington Wizards, they got a crap deal for him. They got bugger all because he had the power to choose the team he wanted, a team that had no assets. In the AFL, if you've got a club who wants to rebuild quickly, they just send this player off to get the best deal. It means we're turning over quicker. Means teams can clean out faster.
Yeah, no, it's got merit. I know what you mean, and it works. It works over there purely because players don't. They don't care. They get relocated. They want to go somewhere. They've got the money, the assets to be able to do that. It's just not the same. You're not going to uproot, your family if you've got a young family for the sake of, as you said, $400,000 and no guarantee you get injured or whatever. And some of those, and this has changed in the AFL. I'm not sure whether you're aware of this or not, but not all the contracts are guaranteed. So back in the 90s, for instance, there was a very small percentage of each team would have a guaranteed contract. So that's not matched. It's just a set amount of money that you're going to earn that year, whether you play a game or you don't play a game. And if you sign a 4-year deal and you get injured in the first round of that, that 4-year deal, you get paid out for that whole 4 years. That percentage has actually gone up now for each team. I wouldn't be exactly, you'd be guessing, but I assume, depending on, I guess, your age demographic at your club, and what sort of superstars you got at your club, how many there would be. But the younger teams would be match payments, retainer, not a guaranteed. So not sure where that percentage sits, but so it's not as cut and dry, which is why I disagree with your theory in our.
So how much money do the players need to be earning for it to be? Is it if every player was earning over $1 million a year, would you say then that's fair game, or is that still not enough?
Well, if you're getting that sort of money, or you're going to get that sort of money to go to another club, then it becomes sort of worthwhile, doesn't it? Like I said, there's no guarantee. So. And the average, I think it's gone up now, but only 4%, 5% of players play 200 games. That's not a big percentage, which is a long career. And
of course.
And that's actually gone, and that's only just gone up a little bit, over the last sort of 10 years or so. It used to be a lot lower than that. And guys like, Dangerfield and these guys that have played over 300, I mean, that percentage is under 1%.
Of course, you were going to take the side of the players. Now, speaking of 200 games, that's why I think it's worthwhile. You might only have to go away for 2 years of your life. I've heard Andrew Bogut talk about this. Players can get traded on a whim over there. Anyway, on Patrick Dangerfield, what about his effort on the weekend? And we're going to expand on this in an extra episode. Just incredible effort to play. I know Geelong didn't win the game, but very, very brave for him on that Thursday night.
Oh, he's a super brave player. His attack on the footy is like not too many players attack the ball with the ferocity that he does. He's a bull when he's on, and you're right, unbelievably courageous. So the players, that's the other thing. A lot of the players we talk about, the dangerous tackle and, some of the ridiculous decisions that are going on at the moment in our game. But that doesn't take away for how courageous some players are. And to their own detriment, way too brave, play with injuries. And that's one of the great skills of the doctors at each club. The doctors know which players can play through injury and push through pain barriers, and they know the players that can't do it, or players that have injuries and can still perform. That's the biggest thing when you're carrying something quite significant, maybe for the whole year. There's talk about obviously Paddy Cripps and other players. I think Jack Steele right now. There's a lot of talk about, is he injured because he's not playing at his absolute top,
maybe has a knee concern
level. But that's what I'm saying. So clearly Ross and the team doctor would know what he's carrying, but they obviously know him better than us, and he'd want to be playing, and it's whether you can perform at a level that, obviously that the team requires while carrying that injury, and not everyone can do it.
Well, keep an eye out for that episode. So we're going to count down your toughest 10 players that you've seen since you began your career back in the late 80s. So that'll be a bonus episode. You can also get on YouTube and Spotify. And also coming very, very soon, we've sat down with someone very special in Glen Jakovich. Just really briefly, how much fun was that to talk to Jacko?
Yeah, he's a good talker. isn't he? He can talk. No, he's people forget just how. Well, I don't forget, but some people don't realise just how good he was. 4 best and fairest in the Eagles. One of the Eagles' best eras in the 90s, and they had guys like Matera, Mainwaring, Kemp. They had some absolute superstars in their team, and Jacko was winning the best and fairest. So that gives you an indication how good he was.
Won't give it away, but some really interesting results too about maybe some concessions about who got who on different occasions. So keep an eye out for that one. Wayne sits down with Glen Jakovich, also his toughest 10 footballers he's seen in his time in football. Thanks for your time. You go and rest up after a big weekend. I know you need to catch up on some sleep maybe. So
good night.
We'll see you again soon.